Hello! Do you want to learn the overview and the evolution of deaf education in the Philippines? Come, let's watch this video. Hello everyone, and good day to all of you po. I am Teacher Jordan, and this is my sign name. I am a grade 4 teacher at the Philippine School for the Deaf, located in SDO, Pasay City. I had my presentation pre-recorded to address the internet connectivity issues and to incorporate sign language for our deaf and hard of hearing audience. Should you have any comment, question, or suggestions, please feel free to contact me in my social media accounts. My topic for today's session is Philippine Deaf Education, Brief History of the Filipino Sign Language. It was believed that Filipino Sign Language originated in the 1590s in Dulag, Leyte. A European priest wrote about his encounters with the local deaf people. Using signs, the Spanish priest in Leyte taught two deaf Filipinos about God. These two would then go on to teach other deaf Filipinos in their missionary works. As pointed out in the Philippine Federation of the Deaf, or PFD publication, regardless of whether or not the exchange used Filipino or Spanish Sign Language, what is important is that communication took place between deaf people using a shared language. During the pre-American period, Filipino parents often kept their children who were disabled and handicapped. People considered such children as desgraciadas, or the unfortunate ones. A school for the deaf and blind was established in 1907 when Dr. David P. Burrows, the Director of Education then, invited to the country Miss Delia Delight Rice of Columbus, Ohio. This photo shows the efforts made to search for deaf and blind Filipinos in 1907. Miss Delight Rice literally had to seek out deaf and blind children and convince their parents that formal education would be beneficial for them. We can see the first deaf school in the Philippines in 1907. This is the actual structure of the schoolhouse on Calle Mercado in Ermita, Manila. We can also see here the first class picture of Miss Delight Rice with her students. Between 1908 to 1910, the school was transferred on Calle Real del Palacio in Intramuros, Manila. It was 1 block away from the famous Manila Cathedral. One of the reasons of the transfer from one school location to another was to accommodate the growing number of deaf and blind learners and faculty members. During the years 1910 to 1923, the school was transferred in a bungalow-type school building, 100 yards away from the Manila Bay. A 2-hectare lot was donated for the School for the Deaf and Blind by an American lady who chose to remain anonymous. The picture you see is now the newly completed school along F.B. Harrison in Pasay City in the year 1923. In the same year, with the new school built, Miss Delight Rice resigned and returned to the United States. Miss Julia Hayes succeeded her as principal of the new school. In 1963, by virtue of Republic Act 3562, the School for the Deaf and Blind was separated into 2 schools. In July of 1970, the Philippine National School for the Blind, or PNSB, was organized, while PSD remained on its present site. By way of overview of the recently enacted FSL law, or the Republic Act No. 11106, or the Filipino Sign Language of 2018, declares the Filipino Sign Language as the national sign language of the Philippines, which shall be recognized, promoted, and supported as the medium of official communication in all transactions which involve the deaf in the Philippines. The areas where FSL law is applicable are in education, justice system, workplace, health system, public transportation, and media. The FSL law mandates the Komisyon ng Wikang Filipino or KWF with the involvement of the deaf community and other stakeholders to establish a national system of standards, accreditations, and procedures for FSL interpreting. To enforce the use of FSL as the medium of instruction and curriculum, the law orders the Department of Education, or DepEd, the Commission on Higher Education, or CHED, the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or TESDA, and all other national and local government agencies involved in the education of the deaf to use FSL and coordinate with each other on the use of FSL. What is the difference between ASL, FSL, and SEE? Both ASL and FSL are natural visual languages used by the deaf people. FSL and ASL are both distinct from sign languages of other nationalities like Japanese and British. There are similarities between FSL and ASL because of the American education system during the American occupation in the Philippines. Let us remember that FSL is a language rooted in Filipino culture, and the ASL is rooted in American culture. FSL is a unique language with its own grammar, syntax, and morphology. Its fundamental unit of structure is the parameters of hand shape, location, movement, palm orientation, and non-manual signals of the face and body. Organization of these units is necessary to convey the message and information being signed. FSL is embedded in the deaf community's identity, culture, and environment. As a visual language, it's informed by what the deaf sees. Since Philippines is an archipelago, variations of signs are common. Hence, a sign for a specific vocabulary may differ from one province or place to the other. On the other hand, signing exact English or SEE is not a language. It is an artificial or manually coded signs representing the oral or written language. It was purposely invented as a strategy for literacy development among the deaf learners. FSL has become a product of a complex history of SEE, ASL, and FSL being shared in the communication between and among deaf Filipinos. Introduction of Filipino vocabularies. Deaf learners are generally considered bilingual. Their mother tongue is Filipino Sign Language. Written language, be it in English or Filipino, is their secondary language. Among the two written languages, they are more versed in English language than Filipino because of the ASL influence. The blended learning in the school year 2020 to 2021 was also the PSD's pilot year of using Filipino in Araling Panlipunan and Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao in the elementary department. School-based action research was conducted to further improve their literacy in Filipino written AB vocabularies. We have a diverse population of deaf and hard-of-hearing learners. Some are able to lip read. Others wear assistive devices like hearing aids and are able to hear high or low frequency or intensity sound. This is the main reason why we adhere to the principles of total communication as a mode of instruction. We incorporate all means of communication, which includes sign language, finger spelling, listening, lip reading, speech, and other non-manual signs of the face and the body. Plain-colored shirt is also encouraged for teachers to wear, and we avoid printed or neon-colored clothes because according to the deaf community, it makes their eyes get tired easily. Wearing of jewelries while signing is not encouraged because it is also distracting on their part. Deaf and hard of hearing students are visual learners. Strategies used include modification of the DepEd K-12 curriculum, modification of learning materials is usually done to address their unique learning needs and for them to understand the lesson easily. According to the World Health Organization, or WHO, over 5% of the world's population, or 466 million people, has disabling hearing loss. 432 million adults and 34 million children. It is estimated that by 2050, over 900 million people, or 1 in every 10 people, will have disabling hearing loss. With the projected increase of people with hearing loss for the next 35 years and the challenge brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, it is vital to find innovations in educating our deaf and hard of hearing students. No one should be left behind in terms of access to quality education, be it in basic or tertiary education. Heraclitus once said, "The only constant in life is change." In the context of sign language, it is evolving. New vocabularies and signs emerge, and we have to be aware and constantly updated. As educators, we're able to adapt to the new trends and challenges in education. We see these changes as an opportunity for us to learn new things. Hence, learning is all about change, and change drives learning. Change and learning occur throughout our lives, and I believe that learning never stops. Salamat po ng marami sa inyong pakikinig, and I hope that you learned something from this short presentation. Again, thank you very much po for listening, and all of you have a nice day po, and God bless. Goodbye.